Hello and welcome back. I'm Joseph Hoffman, and in this lesson, we're going to continue our notation project by working on adding chords to I Have a Dog. Let's come to the piano to get started. For I Have a Dog, we're going to use our two best friend chords, the 1 and the 5/7 chord. So let's review how to play those in C major. Remember that in any key, a 1 chord is built on Do, Mi, and So. So find the C major pentascale. Let's play our 1 chord. And then for the 5/7 chord, remember Do moves down to T, just a half step down, which in this case is a white key. Sometimes the 5/7 chord T moves to a black key, but here there is no black key, so we just move down to B, and Mi moves up to Fa. So we get these notes, which you'll play with 1, 2, and 5. Or for smaller hands, maybe you'll just play these 2 notes. Okay, but if your hand can reach that B on the bottom, that will sound nice. Try your 1 chord, try your 5/7 chord. Good. If you feel like you need more practice with these 2 chords, pause the video. Otherwise, let's keep going and talk about why do we even use these 2 chords? Why do we want a 1 chord and a 5/7 chord? Well, in music, one of the things our ears like is variety, right? How boring would it be if you ate bread every day for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Bread, bread, bread. You know, bread can be wonderful, but only if it's with some other things to give variety. Maybe you also want a salad. Maybe you want some fruit. Maybe you want some potatoes. You know, food is more delicious when there's variety. Same is true with music. The 1 chord and 5/7 chord, that 5/7 chord adds a little bit of flavor to make music more interesting. Now, I also want you to learn how to hear the difference between these 2 chords even when you're not looking at them. So let's try a little game. Close your eyes, and I want you to say out loud 1 chord if you hear this, or 5/7 chord if you hear this. Or you can just say 1, 5/7. Okay, close your eyes and say out loud what you hear. The answer is 5/7 chord. Now say what you hear again. 5/7 chord again. What do you hear? 1 chord. What do you hear? 5/7 chord. What do you hear? That's a 1 chord. Good. Now you can open your eyes again. When we're adding chords to music, we want to use our ear as a guide, but it also helps to notice which notes sound good with which chord. For example, as we've talked about before, a 1 chord will sound really good with Do, but it doesn't sound as good with Re. For Re, we may want the 5/7 chord. And Mi will sound good with the 1 chord because there's a Mi in the 1 chord. If we try to play Mi with the 5/7 chord, it doesn't sound as good. Okay? Now let's look at step 8. Add a 1 or 5/7 chord to each measure using your left hand. Use your ear to decide which sounds best. Write 1 or 5/7 above the first note of each measure based on the chord you choose. So, like we've done in other songs, we're going to add a chord for the first note of each measure. So remember, we're in the C major pentascale. So our 1 chord will look like this. With your left hand, can you try playing a 1 chord? Now try a 5/7 chord. And then back to a 1 chord. Now, let's try the first 2 measures together. Here's how it sounds with a 1 chord. Now let's try a 5/7 chord. Which sounded best to you? Here's the 1 chord again. Yeah, in both of those measures, I liked the 1 chord best. So we're going to show that just by writing a Roman numeral 1 over this measure. Now, in this measure, we could have switched to a 5/7 chord. Let's try that. Now, Do actually doesn't sound that great with the 5/7 chord. So we're going to stay on the 1 chord. So we've got the one chord for mi, and one chords generally sound great with the mi. Mi, mi, re, do. You notice it passes through a re here, and often we like to use a 5/7 chord on a re, but this re, kind of isn't that important because you're passing between a mi and a do. So it still sounds nice. Now, in this measure, what do you think we should have? That's the one chord. That's the 5/7 chord. I'm going to let you choose from here on out. So pause the video and on your own, try out one chords or 5/7 chords to see which sounds best, and then press play, and I'll show you what I came up with. Here's what I came up with. I had a one chord, 5/7, 2, 1, 5/7, 1. Now you might have noticed that this is the same pattern of 1, 1, 5/7, 1, 1, 1, 5/7, 1 that we saw in Mary Had a Little Lamb. It's actually a pretty common chord progression. A chord progression is a sequence or a pattern of chords. Now, pause the video if you need some time to make any changes or corrections. Again, there's not always a right or wrong, but most people would agree that these are the chords that will sound best. You're welcome to disagree, but go ahead on your own, if you like, pause and try out these chords with the melody. Use right hand for melody, left hand for chords, and see what you think. Nice work finishing up our notation project for I Have a Dog. Now that you have it notated with chords, I recommend that you go ahead and work on adding this song to your repertoire. Mr. Hoffman, what's repertoire mean? Repertoire is simply a fancy word that means all the songs you know how to play confidently. So you could say, oh, I have 8 songs in my repertoire, which means that you can play 8 songs confidently. Oh, I have 3 songs in my repertoire. Hot cross buns, 5 woodpeckers, and frog in the middle. I have 5 songs in my repertoire. That's awesome, guys. So, my friends at home, why don't you work on adding I Have a Dog to your repertoire by practicing it every day? And don't forget to review the other songs in your repertoire from units 2 and 3. When you stop practicing a certain song for long enough, you might forget it, and then it's not in your repertoire anymore. That's why I recommend that you regularly review your entire repertoire from the unit you are in now and your repertoire from the last unit as well. I'm practicing my repertoire every day. Me too. That's super, you two. Thanks to everyone for watching and learning with me, and happy practicing. I have a shark, and his name is Sharky. He is the one I love the best. When he is good, he is never snarky. When he is bad, he eats everything in sight.